In today's episode, we would just like to advise our listeners and our viewers that we are going to cover some very adult theme topics.
Oh, that was the wrong one. Sorry. Was it this one? No, it's not this one at all. Oh, let's skip that.
I like the first one, actually. The first one's good.
But nevertheless, yes, please know that this isn't for children. And we would like to just have that. And James, can you share your thoughts on, advise the audience?
Get ready for a good episode. Ba-boom.
Oh, no, that one. I don't even know what we're doing. 1, 2, 3.
Welcome back.
Yes, hello, James. How have you been?
Not too bad.
Not too bad.
And I said that at least 20 times, but it is not too bad.
Well, it would be 20 times because today it is our
20th episode.
Right. Yeah. A round of applause. There we go. A round of applause. Okay, that's enough.
I really see 20 as a big achievement. And I was talking with our guests just then. I can't believe that we are up to 20. And yes, praise the Lord.
Praise the Lord that, this isn't something that just dies, but it seems to just keep going, keep chugging along.
Amen.
Yes.
But anyway, I see that our guest is smiling.
Through the reflection.
So we'll quickly get into it so that he won't wait too long. But how has your life been so far, IJ?
Yeah, good. Nothing new, just the usual work, living with you guys.
Yes.
Living with you. So there's been an update, I think, from the last time. Or did we talk about it last episode? I can't remember.
What is this update?
You got a new job?
Oh, yes, I did get a new job. I am repping my job merch anyway. So it was timely of that. And well, for me, I think nothing new as well. Recently, we started to do a lot more things together because we live in the same household. Whether that is also working out on Saturdays, going for runs. I think that's been nice. And a lot of my small group boys also have been getting into running after watching Physical 100. And
that's exactly the same. I have started running just because of Physical 100.
Yes, and there's an app called Strava. If you guys don't have Strava, please install it so that we can all keep each other accountable and start running together.
Because it's definitely not a competition.
Yes, of how fast you can run.
Nobody's sizing each other up on there. No, that's good. No, it's good to stay healthy. It's good to run. But you've been listening to the King's Army podcast, and we'll be right back.
Well. Do we have a treat tonight?
Yes, we do. Because what's going to happen next? James, please.
The mysterious man who's not that mysterious, but is mysterious at the same time. One of the classics, the OGs.
He ran out of words.
I ran out of words. You can't describe this man because he is a man. Let's go. Let's welcome the man himself, Mr. Bryan Park.
Round of applause. Please come into the King's Army podcast arena.
Hello. Do I only have 2 descriptor words?
I did not think about it, but
that was on the fly for him. So that was a lot of pressure.
Okay, fair enough.
But welcome, Bryan.
Thank you for having me.
I never thought that Bryan would ever come to this show. Well, I didn't imagine it.
Why?
Because Bryan is such a significant person in this church, and at the same time, he is so quiet every now and then that I forget that he even comes to our church.
I know on stage like 100% of the time.
But yes, when we had our King's Army events, that's when I was able to ask Bryan. I thought it was like a timely thing because we had our segment where we had our panel discussion and Bryan was there too, giving very excellent insights. And I thought, it would be nice for Bryan to come onto the King's Army podcast. So here he is.
Yes. It's glad to have you. And yeah, we recently did a King's Army event at church, which was for all targeted towards the young men. And yes, Bryan was helpful enough, or was enthusiastic enough and gracious enough to lend us his time and to lead the discussion and panel. And it's going to be pretty much the same thing, hopefully, of him sharing his life. But
Looking forward to it.
But before we start getting into that, James?
Without further ado, let's break the ice. Question 1. Would you rather speak 10 languages or play 10 instruments?
For me, I'd rather speak 10 I'd rather speak 10 languages. But the reasoning is, do I have to give a reason?
Yeah.
The reasoning is not probably the most fantastic. Part of maybe it's just slightly because like I've been serving at a church for a while. I do feel like if you can play 10 instruments, you'll be required at a lot of places. Yeah.
Well, that's coming from the worship leader himself. No, I think, I'd rather speak 10 languages as well. I think it's a lot more convenient.
Yeah, I think it's useful
Spreading
as
the gospel.
Oh, yes.
There you go.
Literally.
There you go.
Through many languages. Anyway, sorry.
Question 2. Would you rather have every traffic light turn green or always have the best parking spot?
Ooh. I think I'd rather have just green lights all the time. Yeah. I think one of the things I do hate the most, especially I think living in Sydney, because I don't mind, I think walking for about 5 to 10 minutes. But yeah, being stuck in the traffic for 20, 30 minutes and you've only made a kilometer, it's not that fun.
Yeah, it's not a good feeling.
Question 3. What day in your life would you like to relive once?
Ooh. I think it's not the wedding day.
Damn.
And I'm not, it's not like I didn't enjoy the day, but at the same time, it was really chaotic. So I actually don't remember much from that day. So if I was to relive another day, I think for me, it would be the day that I got baptized. And the reason why I say that is not because I want to sound holy or anything, but when I got baptized, I didn't really think, I don't think I really knew what baptism was at the time. I got baptized because in order for me to go to this mission trip to Vietnam, I had to be baptized, or it was strongly recommended. And then when I asked my parents, they were sort of why not? It wasn't so there wasn't much of are you sure about this? This is what baptism is. And I think I did have a pastor who was sort of walking by me at the time. But even then, I think for myself, I didn't really consider the whole occasion that deeply. So part of me, I think, still feels not that there's ever a wasted baptism, but I sometimes do feel that way. Just because when I got baptized, I just had no idea what I was doing. I just wanted to go on this mission trip.
You wanted to feel more of the enormity of what that commitment and that declaration is, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Fair enough. Question 4. What is your favorite cold weather meal?
Cold weather meal. For those that know me, I'm not a big food person. I normally I eat to live. So anything warm would be, I think, fine for me. There's nothing that actually pops into my head at this point.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought you'd be a big foodie.
I appreciate good food, but I never go out of my way really to get those food. So for example, Grace always makes a joke about this, but when she's out, because I don't normally cook for myself, when she's out and then I have to cook for myself, if I'm not bothered, I'm happy to have just chips, like as in like packet chips as dinner, because like for me it's like, yeah, like if it fills me up, like that's all good for me. Like I wouldn't actually make something for myself because just like, yeah, I'd rather not. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're that type of person.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And Grace was so angry for some reason. I don't know why she was angry, because I was fine with it, but she was angry.
Alrighty. Question 5. What was your last Netflix binge?
I actually don't watch a lot of Netflix. Only 2 things that I've, I think, watched was Hospital Playlist and Gyeongsang Creature.
I haven't watched Gyeongsang Creature, but I have watched Hospital Playlist.
Yeah, so Hospital Playlist, I think I enjoyed it. I think I was actually looking forward to watching the next one. Gyeongsang Creature was okay, I'm not a type of person that like really like watches like week by week like these new things that come out. I think the only thing that I did that for would have been like One Piece.
One Piece?
Yeah.
The real life adaptation.
No.
Or the actual.
Yeah, I think that's a that's yeah.
That's blasphemy?
Yeah, that's blasphemy.
Right.
Yeah, I wouldn't touch that.
Oh, you mean the actual anime?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, our last question for our icebreaker is a bit of a deeper one.
Okay.
If you had to be one age for the rest of your life, whether in the past, the present, or the future, what age would you choose and why?
I think I would enjoy being like in the 30s. I think like 30 will be, I think, quite nice. I can't say much beyond 30, I think, because I'm about to turn 30, but obviously I don't know what to expect when I'm 40 or 50. I'm sure there's like different types of joy that comes in that particular age. But I think just comparing what I know for now, I think, I like the stage now where I have the freedom to do what I want to do. So like I got time, like money because I'm working as well. Also have, like a place for myself. Like I'm not living with my parents because I'm married. And I think I enjoy all those things that I have at the moment, which I don't think will be possible, for instance, if I was like 20, for example. Like I can't really see myself being married or anything like that at 20. I think 30 is pretty good, I think. Yeah.
I agree.
He is saying that he's at his prime right now.
Yeah, I think so.
Yes. No, that sounds about right.
Okay. Well, the ice has been broken.
It's been broken.
But also, to continue on to our next segment, we also want to talk about any passage or chapter or anything that God has been really speaking to us through for the past couple months or month or weeks or so. Please feel free to share around the table.
So for me, at the moment, currently it's Matthew chapter 6, verse 25 and onwards, where it sort of talks about Jesus talking about like not being anxious, just observing the bird in the air and the lilies in the field, and just sort of letting us know that we are obviously a lot more valuable than they. And on top of that, like even if we worry, like it's not like we can add a single hour to our life. And therefore seek the kingdom of heaven first, and all these things will be added on to you. And I think the reason I think I think later down the track when we when it comes to me sort of talking about my life, I think this is one of the key verses I think that's really shaped the person that I currently am. But I think the reason why I'm sort of coming back to this passage is for those that don't know, like we're expecting a child mid-July, and I think for me and Grace, like we generally, I think one of the goals that we have with money is like to be generous as possible. So we tend to not really spend money on ourselves, but we sort of try to give whenever there is an opportunity. And then with all of that in mind, just, having a look at our bank account, I'm just thinking like, I don't know how we're going to do it once the kid comes out, especially because like that means Grace won't be working for a while. Because I'm a teacher, I'm not getting paid a whole lot. And I'm also working part-time as well. So just considering all these things, I think for a while I started to get anxious. And funnily enough, even though I've already experienced the provision of God in the past, and I know what it means to seek after His kingdom and believe in it, and then like really have faith that God will provide, even after having to gone through all that, it sort of feels like, now that the struggles hit me again, I'm like reliving that moment again, which I think is, I guess part of me feels like, I thought I would learn by now, but I think another part of me is like, it's another growing opportunity for me. So worried, but slightly excited, because I know this is going to be a time of growth for me for sure. But yeah, that's the verse that's been on my mind for a while now. Yeah,
definitely, money is like one of those topics, even for myself, that I think worry me as well, and I'm sure it worries other people. But I think that is a topic that we will get more in detail later on. Thank you for bringing that up, Mr. Bryan Park.
No worries.
I'll go IJ, and then you can finish us off. For me, it's a passage from Deuteronomy chapter 31. For context, it's when Moses is about to die, and then God tells Moses, you're going to die, and these people, the Israelites, will turn away from me. And so when the Israelites are entering a new land, God is telling Moses to write a song and teach it to the people of Israel, so that the song can be a witness to the people of Israel, basically. And so I'll read a part of it from verse 21. And when many evils and troubles have come upon them, this song shall confront them as a witness, for it will live unforgotten in the mouths of their offspring, for I know what they are inclined to do even today, before I have brought them into the land that I swore to give. So essentially, straight away when I read this chapter, the question I had for myself was, how often do I forget God when I have everything going my way? And I think we're so easily prone to not being thankful and forget God when things are going exactly our way. And sure enough, even recently for me, getting this new job as well, and not having anything really burning to pray for, I think did in some sense not motivate me to go towards God and really thank Him for everything and really cling to Him. I think I really cling to Him when something's going wrong or there's a pain in my life or a struggle. And I think it shouldn't be that way. I think the application was not to be mindful, not to be complacent because everything is going well in my life, but also just to humble myself and remind myself, just like the Israelites, when they humbled themselves before the Lord, God came to their rescue. I think likewise, I should always be in a place of humility, thanking Him for where I am today, and then, really thanking Him for giving me the life or giving me the present as well. So that's my Bible sharing.
No, thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
That's really encouraging to hear. For me, I've with one of my Bible study groups, we've been going through 1 Peter, and one of the chapters from 1 Peter, particular chapter 4, verses 12 to 19, was one that I reflected on, and I think it was very encouraging because the background for that passage is about suffering for being a Christian, and I think the author was really putting a good perspective to suffering in a godly way, and that we are, in verse 14 in particular, it says we are to rejoice in our suffering, for persecution for our faith is something to be happy about. And I think that is such a, I guess, counter-cultural way of thinking about suffering. Nobody naturally says I'm happy when I'm suffering, but I guess when we have the perspective that we're suffering for a greater purpose or a bigger reason or for God's plan, we know it's like something like a badge of honor kind of thing, and to be something that we shouldn't be ashamed of, but embrace and be proud of, that we're suffering for XYZ, if it is for the gospel or it is for certain things about our faith. And I think the standout verse, 1 Peter 4, verse 19 particularly, where it says, "So then, those who suffer according to God's will should commit themselves to their faithful Creator and continue to do good." So in the midst of suffering, I think when it says submit yourselves to their faithful Creator, is to continue to trust God. I think in suffering, it's easy for us to get so disillusioned by, I guess, the situation that is causing our suffering. But it's good to remind ourselves that God is faithful and that He is still working, and that we can continue to do good because God is still working, even though we might not be able to perceive or see it. So, yeah, I just found that verse a great reminder. Not that I'm suffering too bad at the moment, but I guess it's a good reminder in any season of life, in times of good or bad. So, yeah, that's something that I wanted to share. That was good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you guys. Yes, so we normally go to this point where we've shared about how God is currently working in our lives, but in particular, what's the one thing that connects us on Sundays?
What do you mean?
What do we do on Sundays together?
Worship?
More generally, where do we go?
Church?
Yes. And where is church?
Granville?
Yes. What is our church called?
One Family Church?
Yes. And what time?
3?
Yeah, sorry. This is just us trying to plug church into the listeners to say there's One Family Church, 3 p.m., 2B Factory Street, Granville.
Oh man, I was so confused.
Yeah, it's interesting to see because I normally throw that question, and all our previous guests interacted with it differently. Some of them don't get it either, so you're not alone in that.
Okay.
But some of them kind of catch on, so it's just interesting to see how people react. But yes, we know each other from church.
Yep.
So I guess we go into that segment of particularly knowing each other. I'm curious to hear the story behind your interaction with James Joe, and what's something you remember about him, or your first encounter, or just something that over the years stuck out to you.
I mean, I think with James Joe, my interaction, well, I don't remember the first interaction, but our frequent interaction was when we used to serve together in praise team. So I think, James, you used to be part of One Family praise team before me. And then I used to be serving in high school praise team in Acts Ministry, Korean ministry side. And then one year we decided to make a merge of pretty much that praise team as well as the One Fam praise team. And then I was the leader there. And then that's how I started to interact with James. And then, he was the drummer, and then I was leading. And I mean, I don't think I have any moment that sticks out to me. I do remember telling James that he's speeding up a lot, quite frequently.
In his drumming.
Yeah, and I think I traumatized him because I haven't seen him play drum ever since. Yeah. I hope not.
Oh, okay, let's throw it back to James. Was that something that you remember? What was your experiences of remembering?
Yeah, Bryan was like my high school bully.
What?
Whoa.
Oh, joking. Likewise with Bryan, I don't remember like a distinct memory where we had a specific interaction. But yeah, like Bryan said, we kind of had our weekly meeting on Tuesday, band practice. And then, I think that went on for like at least 5 years. I think at least 5 years.
Yeah, went on for a while, yeah.
5 or so years. But yeah, my memory of Bryan was always the Ecclesiastes man.
Oh, please do expand. What does that mean?
That just came to my mind. He's the Ecclesiastes man.
That's hilarious.
If you guys see Bryan at church, don't be dismayed by his no emotion look. It's just the way I think he is. And I think he makes a lot of these very dark jokes every now and then as well. And he just says it in a very, kind of thing.
Blasé.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
And I think I had I had a lot of those moments with Bryan. And then I think that was funny. I think I really always look forward to going to bands on Tuesdays as well. It was a good time.
You can always come back.
It was a good time.
Moving on.
Yeah. But yeah, I do remember a time though when Bryan took the whole band through the Book of Ecclesiastes, and we had like a solid 6 to 12 week season where we just went through the book itself because Bryan was so intrigued by it. And I was like, oh, okay. That's what I remember. But yeah, that's my interaction with Bryan, and somehow, some way we are here. But more or less, what do you think of this man?
IJ.
That was so awkward.
I'm trying to like say in a different way, but
It just comes out the same way.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
What do I think of IJ?
yeah. What was your like first interaction? Like, what was your first impression of?
I remember my first interaction with IJ. I don't know if you remember.
I remember, but I'm curious to see what you think. What was your one? Yeah.
I don't know if I remember the same one, but we was at Lickham.
Mm-hmm.
When we were eating at the restaurant.
Yes.
I forgot the restaurant.
Yep, that's exactly my,
But that's when I first met you, I think. And then we said hi. And then I remember being surprised at how old you were. Because you didn't look that old to me. I was thinking like, at max, like, like my age and maybe a couple of years above. Then, I think from what I can recall, I mean, I don't really remember exactly what we talked about. I think you did tell me that you used to go to Regent's Park. That I remember. But apart from that, I don't really remember much. But I do remember thinking like, oh, like he's a really nice guy. Yeah, like I generally had a really positive sort of interaction. I don't know if you have the same kind of.
No. It was good.
So, what was your genuine?
No, it was good. It was good. No, so it's interesting because like, I remember us sitting across from each other, and that's where I first met yourself and your wife. And I just remember asking a lot of questions because I was curious, because like I felt like you were more older. So I think I was really keen to talk to someone a bit close because I was hanging out with James and them and a little younger, and I feel it.
Those guys.
Those guys.
Those guys. But with you, Bryan, I felt like, there was someone closer to my age. So I think I was excited to get to know the older side of the young adult scene, if that makes sense. Yeah. And I just found it fascinating talking to you. It was interesting because like for me, it was such a pleasant experience. Like we were just talking and hearing about your story and what you did for your job for a living and your journey through that. It was just really cool. I think the first thing I said to you is like, oh, I like your skin tone. That was one of the first things I said to you.
Yeah, I don't remember that actually.
I was like, I like your skin tone because you have like a healthy, healthy skin tone.
Yeah, I don't think I get that from. I don't think I get the response from Koreans though. Yeah, it's like just generally, you're pretty dark. I don't think I really hear healthy skin tone.
Well, to me, it seemed healthy because, I guess the Korean skin tone is a lot more lighter.
Yeah,
so when I saw yours, I was like, oh, that's different. It looks healthy, looks good.
Yeah.
Well, at least in my perspective. Yes. Yeah. But it was interesting because after, I feel like some of the younger guys in that demographic are a bit intimidated by you. Because there was like this thing where they're like, oh, you talked to Bryan? Like, isn't he like, did he like you? I'm like, yeah, it was good. Like they were like worried for me.
Yeah, no, I think I still have that kind of effect on people.
I think because you're like, is it older brother kind of to younger brother dynamic? Is it, you reckon? Or is it just people are just intimidated?
And I think it's sort of like what James was saying before. Like, I think I generally don't really show. Well, I mean, a lot of people say that I'm not smiling most of the time. And I guess like when I do say things, like sometimes it can be pretty like direct or like sometimes
blunt,
a little bit like, whoa, like how could you say something like that kind of comments. So yeah, I do hear that quite often, that's the first impression that people get of me. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess I didn't really pick it up, or you didn't do it. But also in my old group of friends, all of them have similar personality. So they're all very direct, straightforward, and we're like, why would you say that? Or then like kind of thing. I kind of got used to it to the point where,
right.
oh yeah, that's just them being them. So yeah, but yeah, no, that was my experience. It was just nice and good conversation. Someone mature and close to my age, and yeah, that was my first impression.
Oh, yeah, good.
Good.
Yeah, good dad.
Okay, it was a smooth segment. Nothing bad came out of it. Everyone had good interactions with each other. But yeah, further to I guess to get to know you more. Yeah, what if you do care to share? How did you come to know Christ and that journey?
So for me, my story is not. I think my story is quite like common in some sense, where it's like I didn't have that like a one-off event where it was like, oh, like now I see God or now I understand. But it's more like it's very gradual. But where it started from was, I mean, I was born into a non-Christian family. We used to live in Korea, and then I came to Australia, and initially the plan was for me to stay here for about 6 months or so to just study English, because back then like going overseas to study English was a trend. So they were just like, oh, why don't you just try, might as well. Came, and then pretty much long story short, I didn't want to go back to Korea purely because tutoring reasons. Not that I was doing that much tutoring anyway, and then my parents considered coming. And the how I got to enter the church scene was initially because I would visit Sam, Elder Sam, like the current elder of our church, because we're related.
No way.
You didn't know that?
I did not know that.
Well, you actually didn't know?
I did not know that.
Oh, okay. I thought you just being sarcastic.
I'm serious.
Okay.
How are you guys related?
So my grandma on my dad's side. So my grandma's brother's son is Sam.
So you're second cousins with his kids? Oh no! Is
I don't know how it works.
Wait, so you're what is it? Your
my grandma's brother's son is Sam.
So he's in your dad's generation.
Yeah.
Which means you're cousins with their kids.
I think so.
Oh yeah, you're cousins with their kids. Yeah.
So
you're like, you're like second cousins.
I don't know how
with
it works.
the kids.
Yeah,
that's how it works.
Yeah, I'll believe you.
I get it.
Yeah. So we're related. So when I was here by myself in Korea, in Australia, like studying English, I would visit Sam's house or Sam's parents' house once a month or so, I think. And pretty much every time I would go, that Sunday they would drag me to church, or Sam would drag me to church. And then, at the time, I thought like what is this? Like, this is pretty stupid. And then I still remember, I don't know if Sam remembers this, but I remember telling Sam, it's like, how can you believe? And then I was like quite young. I was like only like year 6 or something. It's like, how can you believe in a God that you can't see? And then I remember Sam telling me, well, you believe in air, but you can't see air. And I was like, and then year 6 me, which is like pretty young and stupid, I was like, oh, like, that's about right. Like, not that it convinced me, but I was like, oh, okay, that's true. And then since then, I used to go to church once a month or so. I never really enjoyed it that much because my English was never that great at the time. And then when my parents came, after me telling my parents that I don't want to go back to Korea, when they came, it's so strange, but my dad was so adamant on going to church every week. I was like, Dad, you're not even a Christian. Why you drag me to church? And like, it was so he was so adamant to a point where like I'll act like I'm sick, or I'll act like I got something on, but it'll be like, no, we're going. And yeah, really didn't like the whole process of it. Didn't really fit in either. Like I said, my English wasn't very good. But somehow in some way, and I think this is sort of God actually sort of somehow made the road before me. So there was someone in my grade, and his dad went to the same high school as my dad in Korea, and they met again.
Wow.
Like they didn't know in the beginning, and as we're going to church, like they found each other. It's like, oh, didn't you used to go to the high school? It's like, yeah, and then they were in the same grade.
Wow.
Like they weren't like good friends or anything, but like they knew of each other.
Wow.
So our family started to hang out, and then although I wasn't fitting into the church very well, because of that process, I started to play with the friend that's in my grade, and then that's how I sort of got plugged into the church. And then like over a period of time, like just reading the Bible by myself, just like listening to the word or like worshiping, I guess there was a gradual movement where I was like, oh, I actually want to give this a go a little bit. Like I want to actually read a little bit, find out what this actually, like what the deal is. And then, yeah, slowly, but eventually, I guess, I decided to commit my life to Christ, and that's how I became to be a Christian. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Praise the Lord.
Yeah.
Praise the Lord.
No, it's good to hear a bit more detail about how, your journey from obviously not being born in Australia and moving. Does that mean, do you think in English or do you think in Korean?
So I used to think in Korean for a while, but I think only when I hit maybe like 18 or so, I think it slowly started to shift, and then now I just think in English. Yeah.
Would you say your ability to speak Korean is
I think
still
it's
the
okay.
same?
Yeah, I think it's okay. I can hold a conversation with most, probably most adults. Like my spelling is probably terrible, but apart from that, I think speaking ability, I think I'm okay.
Okay.
better than James?
Probably.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, I guess you were a lot older when you moved. You were quite young when you moved.
I was
here?
like 4.
Oh yeah, definitely.
How old were you when you came to Australia again?
Year 6, so 12. Yeah.
12. Wait, who were you living with when you were?
Just a stranger. As in like I think because like sending your kids overseas was such a big thing, there was a market to like for whoever had like more than a room. Like there used to be, I think, these like website where you can like homestay people. So like people that are wanting to homestay other kids or something.
Were they a Korean family as well?
Yeah, they're Korean family. Yeah, but then it was in Mossman. So I think the reason why my English had to improve so quick was because I used to homestay in Mossman, and there's no Asians there.
Right.
It's all Caucasians. And I think it's sort of like just survival that I had to speak English. Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, that's interesting. Well, yeah, like I feel like a lot of people, when it comes to sharing their testimony, they feel the pressure of it having to be this extravagant, like, story of like encountering Jesus, and no, it's good to hear a different narrative where it's not as extravagant, or it's just a gradual, understanding and knowledge that grows over time, and that's just as valid as one that I turned from drugs to Christ, radical, which is great too. But it's good to show that, coming to Christ happens in all ways, shapes, and forms, and they're all valid because we end up loving Jesus, which is awesome. You mentioned earlier you were married. Yep. I actually kind of want to hear a bit of that story. How did you come to get to know your wife? Sorry, I was saying then girlfriend, but I'm like, let's just say yes because you're married. Your wife. How did you come to get to know your wife? Her name's Grace.
Yep.
And how did that go?
So my wife doesn't actually like sharing this story too much. I find it so funny though. But obviously from Grace's perspective, not that there's a loser of the story, but if you had to pick one, like she seems more like the loser of the story than I think me. But yeah, basically when I started to come to One Family Church, or back then it was called SCPC. When I used to go to SCPC, Grace and I in the same grade. So like, Bible study or whatever, we used to just do it all together because it was all in grades. I think it's still now. But yeah, pretty much like from year 7, I had interest in Grace.
Damn.
But yeah. She had a boyfriend at the time. And then, me obviously knowing that she had a boyfriend, I still, wanted to sort of just know her. But yeah, she was playing really hard to get. I always mention this to people and to Grace, but it took me 3 tries to get her email for MSN because she'll deny it.
Email for MSN.
Yeah, that was back in the day. Do you know what that means? Do we need to translate that for you?
It's sort of like
Facebook profile. Or?
It was way.
Wait, you don't know MSN?
I've heard of it, but I don't know.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
How do I explain? It's like a chatting platform.
Yeah.
Like Messenger.
Yeah, it's like a messenger. But you know how like Facebook Messenger, if you just have them as Facebook friend, you can just message. Or even if you're not friends, you can just message them. But with MSN, it only works between people who like mutually agree to be friends.
Yeah.
And in order to be that mutual friend, like you have to know their email. Okay. And then when the email gets added, then you get the notification to either accept or decline.
I see. So it took you 3 tries to get her MSN email.
Yeah, so I'll ask her what's her email, and then she'll just say, talk to you later.
Oh.
Yeah, and then after 3 times, I know. Yeah. But like I laugh about it now.
You played the long game.
Yeah, I played the long game.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like that's how it sort of came about. And I guess in a way, like she was dating throughout the whole high school period. And yeah, I think, it's not like I've only ever liked her. Like obviously there were other girls along the way that I had interest in as well. But I guess she was just someone that I just probably liked her on and off for like a longest period of time. And yeah, I think when things didn't happen, things didn't go well with her and her previous boyfriend, I guess I just thought like, now's the time. And then I sort of...
You saw the door slightly open.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like, thinking about it now, like, not recommended to go for people that, just broke up. I think there's a lot of, there will be a lot of baggage. And I think we definitely sort of saw that baggage throughout the processes of our dating.
Right.
So definitely not recommended. But obviously, I was pretty young, pretty dumb. And, we even tried to like set a time frame where like, let's not date, but let's just wait. Because I guess, like, because we're like 17 or something like that, like I knew it wasn't a good move. I mean, even then I knew it wasn't a good move to date her straight away. Right. So I told her like, hey, like, look, like, I know you broke up. I like you. But at the same time, I don't want to date you right now. I still want you to, I guess, I think there's I think we talk about gift and singleness, and I think there definitely is things that you can establish yourselves better while you're single. So sort of like do that first, and then maybe in about a year's time, then we'll sort of make it official and start dating. But yeah, that was a really gray period, and because like we're sort of like seeing each other, but we're not dating, and there was a lot of gray lines, and I think because of that, I think we actually fought a lot more during that period. So we had to sort of go, okay, like this isn't working. Let's just start dating. And that was 18.
Is the reason why like you guys fought a lot more is because, as you said, it was gray areas, and because of that, you didn't know what sort of, we had different set of expectations. Is that why you reckon that that's what?
So like for example, like if you're dating, I think it's a pretty common expectation to have, for example, for me to like, let's say, not talk to a girl one-on-one, or like, you know, eat with a girl one-on-one setting if I'm dating. Where it's like, we're not really dating at the moment. So when those things come about, it's like, you know, like, so, oh, why not? Like, I don't have the obligation or like a boundaries to say no. So when those things happen, it's sort of like, oh, like, but I thought, like, you know, like there was a thing going on, you and me, but it's like, oh, but we're not really dating. And then I guess it's just like a huge misalignment as to like what was acceptable and what was not, because we weren't dating, but we were sort of like dating at the same time. And I think that's why, yeah, we had a lot of fights from it. And then we just thought it would be better to just, okay, like, I think it's not going to work. Let's just start dating. And then, yeah, fast forward, I think 6 years, and then got married. Yeah. But yeah, wouldn't recommend dating for that long either. Yeah.
Well, you guys will be expecting a baby soon. On the topic of, I guess, continuing on from relationships, I think that was one of the topics that Mr. Bryan Park wanted to talk about. And I guess one general question, I'll keep it general so that you can explore what your mind is thinking maybe. Now that you're married and soon to become a father, when you look back to your 17-year-old self, and obviously you can say from your perspective, oh, Bryan, you fool, don't do this, don't do that. I guess what are some things you think about in the topic of relationships that you wish you could have learnt or understood before you went into it? I think a lot of our boys, even myself included, can take a lot of keynotes from you.
I think, I mean, there's a lot, I think. But one of the things that I think is probably, I wouldn't say the most important, but I think one of the things that I really wish I knew for myself, because I think looking back at how I dated with Grace, I would definitely say it wasn't done well. It was very messy. There were a lot of moments where, yeah, like we would do things that, you know, we shouldn't have been doing. But I think one of the things that I would recommend for, especially for male, I think especially is just keeping the physical boundary very strict. Because I think for guys, this is just my perception, and this is and also just observation when I talk to other younger guys as well as some people that are older as well. I think we're wired in a way where we are generally about making achievements, right? So like if I do one thing and then, okay, now that I did this thing, I got to do the next thing. Now that I did the next thing, I got to do the thing after. And then it's sort of like we work in steps, whether we're sort of approaching work, whether we're approaching, you know, like gym, game, like whatever it is. And I don't think dating is an exception either for guys. And I think, yeah, it's like, yeah, like the first thing you do will be like, you know, holding hands. And then the next thing and then once you do that, it's like, okay, what's the next thing I can do? And then it might be like a kiss on the cheek. And okay, what's the next thing that I can do then? And then it might be, you know, kiss on the mouth. And then you sort of keep going that to the next stage, because, and fair enough, like it feels nice, like you feel loved, you feel like you're doing something that you enjoy, which is all good. But you know, like like I'm sure, like, you know, you guys all will agree, like as you sort of go down that list of achievements, there comes a point where it starts to get really grey. It's like, you know, is this now in the realm of sin? Because, you know, like I could quite safely say I think holding hands, you know, will be fine. But again, I think depending on the person, because if someone really struggles with, I think, physical contact, then even holding hands might be a little bit too far, which is understandable. But, you know, it comes to a point where, like, you know, you've gone beyond the point of what will be considered, I guess, safe or wise. It's really hard to go back. I think I think the hardest thing is it's easy to go forward, but it's really hard to go back. So it's always easy to unlock the next thing. But once you've unlocked, let's say, like let's say you unlock to a point where it's like, oh, you just kiss on the mouth, and then you realize, oh, okay, this isn't really working for me because I'm being too tempted. It's going to be very hard to go back to the previous step, which is kiss on the cheek, because now you've sort of experienced the next step. It's like, oh, but I don't want this one. And then you can imagine if that ends up being somewhere even further down the track where it's like, you know, sex or so forth, for you to then sit down with your girlfriend and go, oh, like this isn't working, let's cut it back down. Like that process is gonna be, I would think, almost impossible. I think, and therefore I think it's good to keep the physical boundary like really tight early. Like don't even bother exploring that area. And you know, I guess in saying that, you know, I think patience is obviously a big thing. Like if you're obviously planning on, you know, getting married to the person that you're dating, like you're going to be able to enjoy that anyway. Like it's not like, you know, we're saying, oh, like never do it. We're just saying like, no, like, you know, wait so that when it actually comes to time of doing it, you can actually cherish it. Like don't taint it too early. And especially like if you don't end up with that girl, like you've actually ruined your experience for yourself as well as for that girl as well. So like, you know, don't ruin it. Like wait it so that you can actually cherish it when the time comes. But I know it's very easy. Like it's much easier said than done. Like obviously for me, like I haven't done it very well. And I think that was the part of the reason why I said don't date for too long. I think if you only dated 2 years, I think it might have been possible for, you know, like I think for me to be able to sort of try to control myself a little bit more and try to be a little bit more disciplined. But yeah, I think the longer you date, those barriers become less and less like effective. And like, yeah, you're wanting to do just more all the time. Or for me personally, I'm sure there could be other things that, you know, other people that might disagree, but yeah, for me, that was the case. So yeah, that would be one thing.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a wealth of wisdom. And I think in terms of like your relationship with your girlfriend, it's like, it's being able to then, if you restrict or set a clear boundary of that, it also helps you just to build a friendship and like enjoy each other's time without it being attached to physicality, but genuinely just being like good friends, or like building that rather than looking for moments to be physical. You're looking to just see that person as a sister in Christ and just enjoy that time together. And I think, you know, that's another beautiful aspect of having those boundaries, is that, yeah, you're not just so thirsty for those moments, but yeah, you learn to be a friend.
I guess even with like when you said, Bryan, it's hard to go back to what you guys were originally. I guess like even if you guys do break, let's say in the case that we like you do break up with a girl and you've already unlocked those things, definitely you cannot go back to the original friendship that you had before you guys started dating. So I'm not sure that has many different consequences. In multi like dimensions. Yeah,
no, there will be heaps of consequences. Like of course, like, you know, we I think, you know, when we talk about these things within like a church setting, we always sort of talk about in a way of like a sort of like a, you know, like a spiritual consequences in terms of like, you know, how would God view it, you know, how would you feel after in approaching God, which is all true and which is all really important that we consider. But I think sometimes we miss the fact that these actions also have earthly consequences too. Because, you know, like if you know, I think Pastor Martin on sermon last Sunday, he was mentioning about a person like, oh, I wish I became Christian later down the track so I can enjoy my life a little bit more. But on that same light, I think what's really dangerous is if, for example, like you had sex with multiple people and then you realize, oh, okay, I can't do this anymore. And then you turn to God and then you don't do that anymore. You're not sleeping around. And you know, spiritual consequence might be all fine because like you reconcile with God, like you've repented and you know you feel forgiven, and that might be all good. But you will still struggle with the earthly consequences, which is the fact that like when you date the next girl, like it will be harder. for you to withdraw from your urges because you've already experienced everything, and then your body's gonna be constantly saying, "I want to do it." And not only that, it might even be so detrimental. Like, not that this is obviously for me, but I would think, for example, if I've had multiple sex partners and then I got married to the one that I truly love, Christian, all is well, but for whatever reason down the track, if you feel like you're not satisfied with your sex life, your first thought will be that other girl that you enjoyed more. And I think that will be such a massive earthly consequences that you're just going to have to live it for the rest of your life because you've committed to that act before. So it's not like, God will judge you for it now that he's forgiven you and then you've all reconciled and it's all good. But still you have that earthly consequences that you carry, like the baggage that you carry on for the rest of your life. And I think a lot of the times we don't see that.
There's one thing that I really like when Bryan talks about these sort of things. And if you guys know Bryan as well, like he doesn't beat around a bush. And I think it's very refreshing to hear these sort of things. And even today, like we asked him, IJ, like, oh, what topics do you want to talk about? And straight away he mentioned these very hard topics that it's usually hard to talk about, especially like in front of a camera as well. And not only that, he also talks in King's Army about this as well. I remember 2 years ago on the topic of porn as well. And even today he came and said, oh, I want to talk about this. I want to talk about this. And he's very vocal about it. And that's something that I really, really respect. And I guess on the topic of, I guess, certain topics that really influence men in general, whether that be porn or money, I guess since we're on the topic of relationships, we can talk about how porn impacts relationships as well. If you have anything to say about that, and then we can move on to money.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I think everyone would agree, okay, porn's a bad thing. But I think, maybe I'm thinking more, now I can think more deeper into it because now that I'm married. But I think a lot of for me, one thing I realized is I knew porn was bad, but I never knew how bad it actually was. And then I think by the time you realize it, I think unfortunately it's a little bit too late. And I think that's the scary thing about porn. And I think the reason why I think porn is really bad, it's not just it's just just every now and then I just watch porn and then that's it. And then, I repent and then off you go again kind of thing. It doesn't actually work that way because I don't know where I heard this as well. I heard it from another talk as well where the more you watch porn, your neurological path actually changes, right? So I'm sure I think most guys can probably agree that the first time they watch porn or something of that kind of material, it was very mild. It might just have been girl in a revealing outfit, and that might have been enough for you to just feel physically satisfied. But you realize once you keep consuming that material, it's sort of not that I've done drugs, I won't know, but it's sort of the same thing where the same stuff doesn't give you the same hit anymore. So you have to go a little bit more
extreme,
little bits at a time. And then eventually you get to a point where it's no longer a sex act that's possible within godly marriage, right? Whether it's I don't know about the viewers, but I don't know how
you're worried about censorship?
Or I don't know,
No, don't worry about censorship.
Okay, I'll get you guys to sort it out. But once it gets to a certain point, if you start watching stuff let's say sex that involves more than two people, Like, you know, that's not going to be possible within your Christian marriage.
Yes.
But then let's say that's something that you consume because other normal stuff doesn't do it for you anymore. So you get consumed in that, and you're so used to it. When you get into marriage, and then, you know, you're about to, you know, have sex with your wife, it's like, it's just one-on-one though. Like, when all that you've consumed is with another person or more people, and it's sort of like, because your neurological path is now changed to only feel that hit when there's more than one people or more than one person, you can't enjoy a marriage anymore.
Because your sex drive, it sounds like your sex drive becomes distorted.
Yeah, it becomes
almost.
distorted.
And
Yeah,
it's like this thing where it leads to more depravity.
Yeah,
As opposed to, if you didn't go down that path, it would be more in the realms of what's considered normal and right in terms of marriage.
Yeah. And I think, you know, like, I think the more you consume pornography, the darker and darker it eventually gets, to a point where it's like, well, how do I even go back to having the normal neurological path of being able to enjoy just a normal act of sex with my wife? And then that might beg a question of like, oh, then is it okay if I just watch sex that's only got two people involved? And the answer is still no. Because one thing that I think realize is, and I think like a lot of forums also talk about it as well. I think we have to realize that people that we watch online for pornography, they're trained to do that, right? It's like they're competing in the Olympics. Like, they're actually a performer, and therefore they have to put hours and hours and hours of work to do what they do. And then you bring that idea into your marriage, thinking this is gonna work or this is what we're doing. The chances are it probably won't work, because, like, I mean, unless you've personally slept around heaps of times and you practiced it heaps of times, like, the chance that, you know, like, I mean, I'm speaking, I guess, to the general audience of, you know, people that sort of grew up in church and wouldn't sort of do those kind of stuff. Like, yeah, when you first come into marriage, you'll feel like, how is that kind of active and possible? Like, you'll realize, like, you're physically not actually possible to perform in the way that you actually see online, because, like, they're all scripted, they're all premeditated, and they, you know, practice so they can actually perform at that level. And then it's like you trying to compete in the Olympics or like in NBA or whatever when you have never touched a basketball. So of course it's not going to be possible. But then we sort of, again, go into marriage with that expectation of like, oh, that's what I want, that's the kind of sex I want. And then you go in, it's like, oh, like, this is not what I expected. So I think the more you consume porn, like, inevitably, I think you will feel disappointed even more. Like, you won't be able to enjoy marriage as much, just purely because of how much porn you have actually consumed. So, like, again, going back to the whole, like, earthly consequence, like, and then spiritual consequence. Like, yeah, watching porn is bad. Like, you know, it's a sin. You know, obviously God is not pleased with it. You're going to have to repent. You're going to have to go through that process of, you know, bringing yourself before God. But it also, similarly to all the other sins, will have an earthly consequence. And probably one of the biggest earthly consequences, I believe, is the fact that you won't be able to enjoy your marriage the more you consume it. Yeah. And I don't think people generally see it. Well, I didn't see it at the time. But I'm seeing it more obviously now than before.
Because I like what you said when we spoke about it at a previous King's Army event. You described it as something that is unassuming. Because I think the problem is with our society today is that they normalize it. Like, it's a harmless thing. It's not that bad. You're not hurting anyone, and you get a bit of fun out of it. It's good, and they normalize it as something that is harmless. But you were saying it's unassuming because over time, it devolves into something else. And, you know, I've heard stories of Christian wives having Christian husbands that still struggle with it. And yeah, it hurts the wife to hear that they indulge in it still. And that I've heard cases where the wives even want divorce, like feel like they want divorce because it feels like cheating, because you know, it runs the idea in the woman's brain like, am I not enough, or am I lacking? And it starts to weigh in terms of earthly consequences. That's another aspect of the relationship. It doesn't just affect you and I guess our expectations of what intercourse and sex is in marriage, but rather you're dealing with another person that is also getting affected by it.
Actually, just to add on to that, something that I was reminded, I think, this is me. I don't know if everyone thinks this way. When I was like when I was young and I wasn't married, I thought once you're married, automatically you won't struggle with porn, because now that you have a wife, you can just have sex. Completely untrue. Like absolutely untrue. It's like very similar to like, because everyone I think makes this promise, especially if you're considering yourself a bit more of a ego Christian, stuff like, oh yeah, if I have more time, I'll read the Bible more. The chances are, even if there's a time, you probably won't read it because you never read it throughout the period of time. Like even when you have time, you're probably not going to read it. You're probably going to do something else. I think similarly, if you're already watching porn very frequently, the chances are even when you're married, you'll probably still watch porn very frequently. And I think a lot of people just assume, or like, I think for me at least, when I was quite naive, I just assumed like, oh yeah, like of course, like, you know, I won't struggle with porn as much once I'm married. It's like completely untrue. Like if you struggle with it before marriage, you'll definitely struggle with it after marriage. So, and I guess I like what I mentioned before, like, you know, giftedness of being single. One of the gift I think is that you can actually, you know, work on yourself to be able to become more godly, to be able to seek yourself to be more Christ-like at that time, probably more than any other time. One of the things that, really like you should be working on when you're single is to like abstain from like these kind of things. Because once you're in a relationship, it's going to be harder. Once you're in marriage, it's still going to be just as hard. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I so agree with that. It's so true. Because again, marriage isn't going to be something that fixes you and takes all your, if anything, it adds more.
Correct.
It adds more responsibility, more, I guess, hardships that come with it, but also good things. But yes, more hardships. Yeah. And I feel like I really want to emphasize the idea that when you step back and think about the act of consuming pornography and, you know, the act of then one pleasuring themselves to it, when you look at that activity, you realize that's not normal. Like when you think about it, it's just like, you don't need to do that to survive. It doesn't serve you any good purpose but to give you relief. And I think like a lot of guys probably go to that place. There's probably a different, like, loads of reasons why guys go to pornography to kill time or to cope. And I think like it's good to shed light on the idea that sometimes it can be an addictive thing, and it's almost like a drug where you get like a dopamine hit every time you do it. And so I've noticed, having many conversations with other guys in the past that have struggled with it, the trigger points are it's either when they're stressed out or sometimes when they're comfortable and they're bored. Like it's always an emotional response to cope with the environment around you. And I think it's good to think about those things if you're going to try and go into that journey of abstaining, is to really dwell and ask yourself those questions. Why do I need to do certain things to cope? And what does it look like to avoid these things? What does it look like to view it as something that's just not normal and something I don't need to do? I can do other things. I can go for a run. I can hang out with a friend. I don't need to spend an hour scrolling for that content, you know, and getting to that place. And so, it's sad that it's one way the devil prowls. Even within our church community, there's probably a lot of men that struggle with it. You know, single, married, or whatnot. But yeah, I think it's important to spread that message. Like, it's not normal. Let's not make it a normal thing. Yeah. No, but thanks for sharing.
That's all good. Yeah.
That was really honest and vulnerable, and I appreciate the, you know, the depths of how straightforward you were about it, because sometimes we do need to be very straightforward about these things, because especially I think in our culture, Asian culture, it's a bit something you don't talk about.
Yeah,
it's something.
It's a bit hush hush.
Yeah, it's a bit uncomfortable to talk about. We don't talk about it. Just that's your private thing.
Yeah.
Which is why, like, yeah, this platform is good, because like if you guys are watching this as well and you want to ask a few more questions, you can like directly approach Bryan, and I'm sure Bryan will be open enough.
Yeah,
to
if you're not intimidated.
He'll try and smile at least once in the conversation.
But yeah, our next topic that Bryan definitely wanted to talk about was, he kind of gave a hint earlier on, was about money. Money is a big point that all men think about as well, especially myself as well. And I think we did briefly touch on it as well when we had DC on our podcast 2 months ago. But at the same time, we want to hear your kind of view on money, and I think I'll keep it broad and open so that you can share your perspective on money, if that has something in relation to do with what you shared about with not being anxious, or just in general. So feel free to share.
Yeah, so I think, money is a very, funny thing.
Yeah.
And I think also, like, for how often money is mentioned in the Bible, I think we don't actually talk about it that often. Well, I don't know if you guys do in your group of friends, but I don't think we really talk about, how to use money well, like how to have righteous gain of money and so forth. But I think one of the things that I wanted to talk about in terms of money was more in the lines of how to just view money, like what is it, and how to use it. And I'm not, I guess, really here to talk about it because, like, I'm doing it well or anything like that. Like, if you're here from the very beginning, like, first thing that I said is, I'm anxious, or recently I've been anxious about money. So it's not like, I'm here saying this because I got it all down pat. But I think, money is a funny thing because we think we earn it. And the way that it works, the reason why I think, everyone feels that way is because the whole society revolves around it. So give you a very quick progression example. So for example, from high school, you will be told that if you get a good ATAR, you'll be able to go into the uni that you want to. Okay, and once you get into the uni that you want to, like if you do well in it, you'll be able, like if you get like a C average or like a D average, you'll be able to get a job that you want to. And once you get that job, then you'll be able to earn a lot of money. And then once you earn a lot of money, you'll be able to buy a house, you'll be able to buy this, blah, 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 blah. So it's like cause and effect. If you do this, this will happen. If you do this, that will happen. But I'm sure everyone can agree, life is very different to science. Science is like, if I do this, this will happen, definitely. Right? If I drop a ball, it'll fall towards the ground. That will always happen. But in life, it doesn't work that way. Even if you got a 99 ATAR, you might not be able to make it to the uni that you want to for whatever reason. Even if you get, D average in your uni, you might not be able to get a job you want to, and for various reasons, right? Like you bombed the interview, or like you just happen to be in a field where currently there's no need for that many people in that field. So there's multiple reasons as to why it doesn't actually work like a math equation where if I do this, this will happen. Life doesn't work that way. But then because we believe that, I think when it comes to money, it's like, I earned this because I did these things in the past. Like I'm earning this money because I'm in this job, because I studied hard in uni, because I studied in high school, and that's why I'm earning this job. But I think we have to see money more of it as something that God has actually allowed us to have throughout a multiple stages of life. Like even if you got a 99 ATAR, you might have not gotten to uni for whatever reason, but God allowed that to happen. Even if you got the average, you might have not be able to get that job, but God allowed you to have that job for a particular purpose. And like God allows you to have these things, but then when it comes to us, I guess, earning money, it's like, oh, it's mine now. And I think that's why money is a little bit funny. It's like, I'm earning it because I'm capable. But, I think so many times you'll see people that are very capable that are not earning the money that they either deserve because, either they're not given an opportunity or they may have been capable, but even like the chances of like, let's say like they used to be a capable, like, sports person, basketball player, and then they get into a car accident and then they can't use their legs anymore. It's like, well, those things are never like out of the equation. Like it's never zero, those kind of percentage. Those kind of things always happen. So yeah, we can't think of it as like, oh, I'm earning it because I did everything. You're earning it because God allowed you to have that job. God allowed you to be able to go to the uni or TAFE or whatever. So when we do get money, we shouldn't view it as like, oh, it's mine. Because I think quite commonly, especially I think people that go to church, when we get the money, it's like 10% is for God and 90% is for me. Because like, the tithing, like we give 10% away. And then even that is like funny, like, people talk about before tax or after tax. Like, I mean, like, 10% is not the issue. But it's more like, okay, if God has allowed me to have this much money, like, yeah, let's say 10% you put aside to the church, because obviously you do want to help out the church to be able to function in the way that they do. You were supporting the paid workers of our church as well as the mission that happens from the church and all that. So we put 10% aside before tax, after tax. That's, I don't think, anyone to really dictate. Like it's really up to how you and God sort of come into that agreement. It doesn't even have to be 10%, but just for this example, let's say we give 10% away to the church and you're left with 90%. And then I think it'll be very, it wouldn't make sense for us to then go use that 90% all on me because I've earned it, right? Because like I talked about before, I think when it comes to money, like yeah, you earned it because like you're working there, but we have to realize that we're only there because God allowed it. And if that is the case, with the 90% of the money that we have, it's not so much how do I use it on myself, it'll be more to do it, how do I use it so that it can advance God's kingdom. Pretty much literally from Matthew chapter 6, which I sort of mentioned earlier. And, like eating food, it can still be for God's kingdom, because if you don't eat, obviously you can't do anything. So you have to eat in order for you to work in God's kingdom. Like you looking after your kids, paying rent or paying the mortgage, they're all like, those things are never wrong. Like those things are all needed in terms of working for the kingdom. But we just have to be careful whether it's actually for God's kingdom or my kingdom. So for example, as I'm paying the mortgage, if I'm thinking to myself, like, yeah, I love this house, like this is for me, like I'm going to cherish it, like it's all about you and the house, then maybe when you're paying the mortgage, maybe it's not for the kingdom, maybe it's for your kingdom. But as you're paying the mortgage, you're able to thank God that you have it. You're able to really give it up to God, use that space in whatever way possible for God. And I would say that like, as you're paying your mortgage, although it's still your house, you're still able to use it for the kingdom. And I think, it would definitely come with, I think, practice and over time. It's not like you just wake up one day and bam, and then you just got it all under control. But just shifting the perception of money, that, yeah, as much as we like to feel that we earned it, God can very easily take it away if he wanted to. It just takes just a little snap of a finger for God, for him to be able to take away all those things. So, yeah, I think for us to really keep reminding ourselves that this money is not mine, or I mean, it is yours, but it's not that you earned it, but it's God is allowing you to have that money so that, yeah, you can use it for His kingdom. Yeah.
I think that's a good eye-opener, especially for me as well. I think many times, even through social media, like we're fed the idea about money as being something like you work really hard, you get this, like you said, the cause and effect thing. But like you said, how life will always get in the way and something will happen. And for money just to come, like to your money just to be an outcome of hard work, like it makes logical sense though. Like based on how many hours you work, the more hours you work, the more money you receive. So I think like definitely, even for myself, like a lot of men see it as a way. Oh yeah, it makes logical sense. You do this, you get that. But in many ways, I think to prolong like over a series of years and for you to receive money over like many different years, I think it is definitely God's provision and His will that you're healthy to work every single day, or all the other things that influence you to work and earn money. So I think definitely it is an eye opener.
And I think maybe I'll just add on like so one of the example I think that sort of happened in my life where because like I was saying, like sometimes like it makes sense that if I work this many hours I get this much money and then so forth. So obviously that's something that everyone thinks about, and then sometimes it works the other way where it's like, okay, so that means if I don't work this much, that means I'll be minus this much. So you start to sort of worry and stuff like that. And I think just the one example, because I have so many. I think God has been very gracious with me in how He has provided financially in my life as well as Grace's. But one of the example that just comes top of my head where God has provided in a way that it sort of didn't make sense. When I was making a transition from going from engineering to teaching, obviously there was a period of time where I had to study. And I decided, okay, I'll study full time for 2 years, and so that I can just get it out of the way, and then work part time when I can. And during that process, COVID hit. And I remember one thing that I kept praying for myself before I made the decision to change my job was, God, like not that God always gives me signs, but I think at that time in particular, I think I was sort of wanting to see a sign because I wanted to make sure that I'm making this move for the right reason. So I told God, like, God, if this is indeed me making a transition to a different job for your kingdom, can you provide? Because, at the time we still had mortgage. Grace was working, and we're still pretty new to our work as well. So she's not getting paid, a whole lot. And obviously I will be technically jobless or maybe getting just a little bit of, $100, $200 per week or so. So it's like, okay, we knew we had enough-ish money to maybe survive. And I know I was like contemplating, maybe I'll have to change part-time study like towards the end of it. But, beginning, I was just praying like, God, if really I'm doing this for your kingdom, just provide for me. And I remember there's one time my bank account was hitting really low, and I was considering, it's like, okay, I might actually have to switch to part-time study so that I can work full-time anywhere. It didn't have to be engineering or teaching, just anywhere, to just keep the boat afloat. And at the time I was working as a casual teacher, and at the time I was only getting called in maybe like once every 2 weeks or so. So like an 8-hour block every 2 weeks, which is not a lot. And when COVID hit, there was a period where you're getting paid from the government based on how many hours of work you lost. So they will ask you, in the past 2 weeks, how many hours did you lose? And then based on that, they will calculate roughly how much that you should be getting paid, and then they'll give you the pay. And then obviously for me, I was only working 8 hours every fortnight. The week that government decided to ask when did you lose your job? Or sorry, how many hours did you lose your job from this period to that period? The school actually booked me for the entire 2 weeks because someone went on paternity leave.
Oh.
So when the time came for the government to ask me how many hours of work did you lose, I could say 40 hours.
Oh, wow.
And that was the only ever 2-week block I ever gotten in my entire casual working period.
Damn.
So during that period, once I claimed that as the hour that I lost, I was obviously getting paid the maximum amount that I could be getting during the COVID time. So I wasn't working. I could just stick to full-time study.
Wow.
And just have my have everything paid for. And I think, stuff like that. I think, when I think about it, like, it doesn't make sense. But so often I think we think that money is cause and effect. But I think the more you sort of reflect on the
Intrinsic.
Intricacies.
Intricacies of life. I think you realize, like, actually nothing is cause and effect.
Right.
Like, everything has a random chance here and there, and I think for us, we take that as provision from God. Not a random chance.
Definitely fully working in control. It's amazing how you said that prayer and not knowing how God provided, and you kept going, and then God provided exactly what you needed for exactly that block of time. And God provides. Matthew 6 runs true.
No, it really does.
No, praise the Lord. That is so encouraging. So I guess the message to the people listening is that not that God is your genie, but if you earnestly seek to further His kingdom, God will provide what's needed. Just keep moving in that direction. Now, one thing that I admired about you and Grace is that you guys are very generous with your time and with your resources. I love the fact that you guys always invite people over, and I really appreciate that kind of effort that a married couple does, is to not just stay within themselves as a married unit and not have people over, but I love that generosity that you share. And another aspect of generosity that you share is discipleship. So has it been a couple of years now that you've been leading an all males small group?
I think it's been 3-4 years.
Yes. And what was the inspiration, or what was the thought process of you starting or committing to such a group? I
mean it goes quite it goes a bit back. So I think it goes back to, I think when I was like roughly 18 or so. And I think by the time I was 18, I was like pretty eager to grow, to learn. And at the time I was also like considering becoming a pastor as well. And then I talked to a pastor at the time, and then he recommended me to first just get a normal job first. Just because like that does help in terms of like working as a minister down the track. And also he did say there's actually someone that's similar to you but a bit older. I think it'll be good for you guys to just meet and chat. So some of you guys may know him. His name's Suwan, but he's no longer at our church. He's living in Perth now. So we used to meet up once a week just to read, chill, do life together. And for me, like that time, although I actually don't remember much of what we talked about or what we read about, I think it was a time where I probably grew quite drastically in my spiritual life. And I had such a good time. I think when I was, in my early 20s, I thought to myself, like, I want to do this too. I want this too. So I started meeting up with, you guys all know him as well. I started meeting up with Stephen So, one-on-one. And then, but, I think at the time, I think one thing that I learned at the time was maybe my eagerness was to great in proportion to like my preparation. And I mean, it's not like I'm gonna call it like a failed project or anything like that. as in not on Steven's part, on my part, right? Not on my part.
Yeah.
You know, hey Steven. Yeah, but I think I was definitely very underprepared. Didn't really know what I was getting myself into, but I was still eager to do it. But I did it anyway. And I think overall experience was still positive. I mean, unless Steven says otherwise, you guys can ask him separately. I mean, for me, yeah, overall experience was positive. But I think there just came a point where, as we were sharing live, when it got pretty deep and pretty dark, I don't think I was ready to actually handle it. I was like, well, I don't know what to do with this. This is not what I expected. And in many ways, I do feel bad for that shortcoming. Because, you know, I was never able to, I guess, maybe like, you know, be there when I was needed, or maybe be present in some ways. But I guess that was a lesson learned for me. And yeah, I think, and then from that point onwards, so Stephen then left to YWAM, and then a couple of years passed, and you know, I think I thought to myself, okay, I want to give this, you know, like a discipleship thing another go. And at the time, there were a couple of people in my mind, and then John Lee and Daniel Wang were the two that said yes. So yeah, basically I tried to do the same thing again, but I think I was a little bit more prepared. I think at least mentally, just sort of knowing what to expect, knowing how I guess rough it might get. But yeah, we just met, just read the word, just talk about life, just share. And in the beginning, it really was rough. Like, and this time it wasn't because of me, because John and Duang.
Were they just really dry?
Not dry. So the commitment was every week. I'm sure they won't mind me saying this. But Duang probably came like, 30% of the time because he just slept in. And then John would come most of the time, but he was still going through his fresh graduate phase. And then, sometimes he'll come and then, he had a little bit too much alcohol the day before, and there's like sort of, yeah, your fellow small group leader.
You're a co-leader right there.
Yes, it was rough. And then, I remember, me, Grace, and Duang, we still laugh about it. But there was a phase where Grace was like, why don't you just tell, Duang to, just quit? And then I remember thinking to myself, oh, no, I knew it could get rough. So I'm just going to keep running with it. I'm going to keep trying, keep reaching out. And I think eventually, not because I told them to come every week, but I think eventually, we started to sort of enjoy what we were doing. We enjoyed the time and they were spending together. And then, yeah, just had a really positive experience. And then from there, I sort of decided, okay, why don't we try to expand this a little bit more? Because another reason was because, commitment-wise, it was getting pretty tough because at the time, I'll go to my own small group, plus praise team, plus discipleship separately. And then I was like, that's just too much for me at the moment. So why don't I try combining the discipleship and the small group component together? So that's when I talked to Duang and John and said, hey, what do you guys think about this idea? This is the model that I have. This is what I'm thinking. And then they were down. Talked to Pastor Jacob. He also gave it a good to go. So recruited 2 more members. And then, now I was sort of in the process where trying to go through the cycle where if you've been with me for 3 to 4 years, I try to send you off either to lead another small group or to hopefully, if you're not really wanting to lead, then hopefully go into another small group and be more of a pivotal member, not those just members that just sort of sit there and don't say anything, but members that are that's participating frequently, asking questions and things like that. And yeah, so that's basically what's been happening, and that's how I got to where I currently am. Yeah.
No, what a journey. One of the things I also wanted to ask in that journey of small group leading and discipling, and have that emotional investment and relationship. Yeah, how do you navigate through, I guess, kind of guiding them through difficult times in their lives, or when they ask for opinion, and how do you like kind of learn how to emotionally detach? Because sometimes, for me at least, it's hard to like accept some of the decisions that they're making when it's clearly not the right thing or wise thing to do or godly thing to do. Yeah, what's your way of navigating through balancing being stern but also being patient?
That's a really hard question. And I think it's also very hard question to answer as well. And I think primarily because I think you have to, or for me personally, I think from at least my experience, you have to approach everyone differently, I think. As in, like, I feel like there's probably no one rule that is able to fit in every criteria. Because you might get someone, you know, who needs a very stern, like a wake-up call and say, like, nah, that's not it. You can't do that. But you might also have someone that's, like, very sensitive. And if you approach it that way, they might get a bit hurt. So you might have to, come off a lot more supportive in the way that you say it, and so forth. So, yeah, I think honestly, I think that's what I found to be the hardest thing about, I think, discipleship so far. And I mean, I really should read a book on it or something, because I'm just sort of doing it on the fly, honestly. But I think just interacting with different guys, they all obviously take things differently. They all have their strengths and weaknesses. They all have the things that they prefer and then don't. And really, I think the first couple of months that I'm seeing them, I'm really, more than anything, like for me, I'm trying to suss them out to see what actually works. Like, is this type of person that will prefer this kind of feedback or that kind of feedback, and so that when the time comes where they're either struggling or I feel like they're making a decision that's probably not the wisest thing to do, I can sort of try to give more fitting and appropriate response. But in terms of like, I think you did mention something about like emotionally detaching yourself, or like stuff like that, or when you're like disappointed and things like that. What can you do? I think for me, one thing that I always try to do, and I don't know whether this is because like I'm also teaching in high school, but one of the common mentality that I have with anyone really is like I don't know how to say it in English. I only know how to say it in Korean. It's like it's like, oh yeah, that can happen. That's sort of my mindset. It's like, yep, that can happen.
It sounds like you've accepted, whatever scenario, kind of thing.
Yeah, so like I'm sort of coming from the basis that we're all sinful, but then it's just that we show symptoms very differently. So in the midst of our, all of us being sinful, it's bound for something to obviously go wrong. And it might go wrong in an area where I can very easily empathize, but it might go wrong in an area where I can't empathize at all. So like, for example, like if someone fails in the realm of like, let's say pornography, I can empathize very well with it. It's like, yeah, I understand, so forth. But in some other sense, like if they fail, it's like what is wrong with you? Like it's so obvious. But then I have to remind myself, no, it's like, no, that can happen. Like in their sin and in my sin, in all our sin, their symptom is to show it in, like the symptom of sin is to be showed like this, and it can happen. And it's just more about, rather than trying to sort of get involved with that problem emotionally, I think for me, I like to just accept it. It's like, okay, that can happen, that's fine. Or I mean, it's not fine, but as in like it can happen. And okay, now what can I do to help this person? And yeah, I think so far that's, I think, worked okay for me. But yeah, really just accepting. I think for me, the first step is just to accept that it can happen. Right. Yeah, it's like, yeah, look, like, yeah, you're a sinner, I'm a sinner. Of course you're going to sin. It can happen. But what next? Yeah, but what next is the general step that I take. Yeah.
No, that's very insightful. Yes, because I feel like I dealt with stuff like that, and I still do. And I think for me, my little self-soothing exercise when it comes to feeling disappointed with someone or people is to say that I guess it's not God's will, like for them to act the way I thought they should, or for circumstances to be a certain way. So I think that helps me put it back onto God and say, well, God's in control. It's not his will. But I can trust that he's still working in it. And it isn't just like the be all and end all of, it didn't work out the way I thought it should have, or it should have gone in this, or they should have. So it's just like being like, well, yeah, God is still sovereign. He's in control. And it's not God's will, so I have to accept it. Yeah, and then it's the same thing of just acceptance of the situation.
Yeah.
So learning how to accept is the key.
Which is loving them at the end of the day. Yeah, like obviously I co-lead with John, who was in your old previous small group.
Yeah, I'm sorry about him.
And you hear that, John? But John does tell me a lot about. Well, I can see. Well, like whenever we led small group, to be honest, like you can say like, "Oh yes, I'm sorry about John," but at the same time, like I learned from John as well, and he. Like of course, like it's good to joke around with him every now and then. But when he gets serious, and like it's one thing that I really like as well. And he tells me like every now and then when we're having dinner, or he tells me like what his experience was like. Obviously, when he was a member in your small group, and like things that you done as well, which he experienced as a very like respectable and gracious thing that you did as well. And like many things, like even like in regards to money. I even heard like, this is not to like put you up on a like high up, but like you're definitely like shouting meals as well is one thing, and yeah, like to do it repeatedly as well, I think is a massive thing that you have to overcome with your like kind of pride. And I experienced that a lot even in my small group. I'm not sure about if like, I'm sure you guys have all experienced it in your small groups as well as leaders. There's many times when you have to swallow your pride because you have the mentality of, oh, I'm the small group leader. And again, it's that pride of, oh, I'm the small group leader. I'm the one to make the last decisions. I'm the one to direct and lead. Like at the same time though, I think it's a kind of a faulty mindset, because at the end of the day, we're there only to facilitate and we're only there to serve. And sometimes I lose sight of that. And what you guys shared right now, how, acceptance, whether it's acceptance or like really leaning into God's will and trusting that he works in all aspects, and acknowledging that altogether we are sinful humans and things happen the way they are because they're meant to happen that way under God's sovereignty. I think that gives me a lot of peace. So thank you for sharing those things.
So good.
Yes. Well, thanks for sharing.
No, so good.
Thanks for coming over and having a chat.
Nice. It's good. Yeah.
There's a lot of great conversation, a lot of helpful insight, and a lot of godly wisdom that I felt you shared. And it was really encouraging to hear also your journey of coming to Christ, and also, how you've been doing life with God.
Praise God.
Praise the Lord.
So, yes, but as we sign off, you've been listening to the King's Army podcast with your host, IJ,
James,
and our guest,
Bryan.
And until next time, thanks for listening. God bless and stay classy.